Good morning. Bonjour. We're here today to unveil a significant milestone in the federal government's plan to fight against gun violence and keep Canadians safe. In 2020, we introduced a national ban on assault-style firearms in the wake of the Portapique and Truro shooting tragedy in Nova Scotia. The national ban means that AR-15 style firearms, which were specifically designed to kill the maximum number of people in the shortest period of time, would be prohibited. Assault-style firearms were designed for a battlefield, and they have no place in our communities, in our places of worship, in our schools, or in our playgrounds. They serve no legitimate purpose other than killing the greatest number of people as quickly as possible. And that's why we banned them. Yet we made a commitment to those law-abiding gun owners who had bought these firearms when they were legal that they would be fairly compensated. Over the past months, we have been working closely with partners and industry leaders to prepare for the rollout of the buyback program. And that's exactly why we're here today. Ce matin, nous sommes ici pour parler du programme de rachat d'armes à feu. Nous avons été clairs. Les armes d'assaut n'ont pas leur place au Canada. Elles ont été impliquées dans certaines des pires tragédies de notre histoire, à Québec, en Nouvelle-Écosse et ailleurs. Elles ne servent aucun objectif si ce n'est de tuer le plus grand nombre de personnes possible, le plus rapidement possible. Mais nous nous sommes engagés envers les Canadiens respectueux de lois qui avaient acheté ces armes légalement à les indemniser équitablement. Au cours des derniers mois, nous avons travaillé avec un grand nombre de partenaires pour préparer à ce programme. Au cours des derniers mois, nous avons exercé un effort pour coordonner avec nos partenariats. Et c'est exactement la raison pour laquelle nous sommes ici aujourd'hui. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the federal government is taking the next concrete steps towards launching the Firearms Buyback Program. The government has entered into an agreement with the Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, which represents and coordinates with businesses. Working with Public Safety Canada, the CSAAA has already identified approximately 11,000 assault-style firearms, including parts and components within the existing inventory of firearms vendors across the country. These are the first assault-style firearms bought back under the program and show that we are moving forward with this landmark federal initiative. We're working with retailers and the government to streamline the process of buying them back. Aujourd'hui, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer que le gouvernement fédéral prend les prochaines mesures concrètes pour lancer le programme de rachat d'armes à feu. Le gouvernement a conclu un accord avec l'Association canadienne des armes et munitions de sport qui coordonne avec les entreprises. En collaboration avec Sécurité publique Canada, l'association a déjà identifié environ 11 000 armes à feu de type assaut, y compris les pièces et les composants dans les stocks existants des vendeurs d'armes à feu à travers le pays. Il s'agit des premières armes à feu de type assaut rachète dans le cadre du programme, ce qui montre que nous allons de l'avant avec cette initiative historique. Nous travaillons avec les détaillants et les gouvernements pour faciliter le processus de rachat. The first phase of the buyback program, as described, involving industry, is expected to begin later this year. And the second phase, which will launch after that, will focus on individual firearms owners across Canada. We're currently working with many partners to develop this program, which will be implemented in close coordination with law enforcement and other partners. We're also engaging third parties in the public and private sector to take advantage of their expertise and capacity. As you've heard me say before, no single program or initiative can tackle the challenge of gun violence by itself. And that is why the Buyback Program is one of the many elements in the government's comprehensive plan to keep Canadians safe from gun crime. Tout d'abord, des frontières solides. Au cours des 2 dernières années, nous avons consacré un demi-milliard de dollars approximativement supplémentaires à la sécurité des frontières pour lutter contre le contrebande et le trafic. Notre plan fonctionne. L'Agence des services frontaliers du Canada et le GRC saisissent un nombre record d'armes à feu, tant à la frontière qu'au niveau national. Nous travaillons également en étroite collaboration avec nos partenaires américains pour lutter contre le contrebande et j'espère pouvoir en dire plus à ce sujet dans le courant de la semaine. Second is strong and smart legislation. This is headlined by Bill C-21, Canada's most significant action on gun violence in a generation. This historic legislation implements a national freeze on handguns, takes aim at organized crime, and addresses the alarming role of guns in domestic and gender-based violence. Third is our strong prevention strategies. This is led by our $250 million Building Safer Communities Fund. It takes direct aim at the root causes of gun crime and violence by supporting local initiatives to help young people make good choices and to stop gun crime before it starts. As I conclude, I want to be clear. We have laid out and are moving forward with our plan. And it's a plan that is going to work and is working. But not everybody agrees with that plan. And specifically, I would point out that we want to ban AR-15 style firearms. Conservatives want to make them legal again. We want to work with the survivors of tragedies. We want to work with law enforcement. And Conservatives prefer to work with the NRA and Special Interest Gun Lobby of Canada. We support historic investments in crime prevention and border security. And Conservatives voted against those appropriations. We suggest solutions, and Conservatives spin off slogans. This is a stark contrast in the way in which we keep Canadians safe from AR-15 style firearms and gun violence. And we're going to keep doing the hard work within our caucus, with parliamentarians, with opposition colleagues, with the Senate, and with all Canadians, because we owe it to the memories and the legacies of everybody who has lost a loved one, so that we can keep Canadians safe. Thank you. Merci.
Minister, you mentioned 11,000 firearms. Can you provide a breakdown between how many of those are owned by individual versus by businesses, and how many of that number are actually components or parts?
Well, as I said in my remarks, this is a significant milestone in the launch and implementation of the federal firearms compensation program, what has been commonly referred to as the Buyback Program. We have identified a partner in the CSAAA, and I want to take a moment to thank them for all of the work that they have been doing in coordinating with firearms vendors across the country. The specific number of 11,000, which I refer to, comes within the existing inventory of firearms which are eligible to be bought back under this program as owned by store owners. So we're not talking about individual gun owners here. We're talking about a number of firearms which is owned by firearms vendors.
That partner you just talked about says it remains skeptical as to the viability of the industry buyback program and cites a lack of concrete process for implementation. Does that give you any pause?
Well, I think the entering into the agreement by CSAAA certainly highlights that they're willing to do their part, which is why I think it's important to thank them. And look, it goes without saying that this is a very difficult debate, that there's a lot of toxicity when it comes to debating good, smart gun policy, and I have no doubt that despite that they are committed to coordinating with firearms owners and vendors to see that 11,000 bought back, which is a significant first step towards the rest of the work that we're going to do, which is to make sure that these guns, which were designed for a battlefield, and not for recreational purposes, to get them out of our communities for good.
The amnesty expires in about 6 months. Are you confident the individual buyback program will be complete by then if it's still being drafted now?
We're dedicated to moving forward with this program as quickly as we can, but we also have to make sure that we get the buyback program right. It's a program that is without precedent. It's national in scale. It's going to involve a number of partners, including industry leaders. I think it's a very positive development that the CSAAA has entered into this agreement, which is why I want to thank them. But we also need to work with, as I said, a number of other stakeholders, including law enforcement, local police of jurisdiction, and of course, individual gun owners themselves. And what I can tell you is that through my travels and conversations with Canadians, that everybody understands what the government is trying to do here. And that is to get guns that were designed to inflict the greatest amount of lethal force in the shortest period of time. And that means that we have, each of us, a collective responsibility to do our part to get them out of our communities.
How many guns are there? You say 11,000, but is that how many actual guns are registered? Or, and also, how is the CSAAA actually administering this program?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that 11,000 is a significant number. It's a very solid start in what is going to be a very important program. And that's why what we have done in working with the CSAAA is try to take an approach that is efficient and streamlined. And so the role of the CSAAA will be to work closely with vendors who have this existing inventory to facilitate the process of surrendering, compensating, and ultimately destroying or deactivating these firearms so that they can't pose any threat. And that's why we banned that's why we introduced the national ban on assault-style firearms in 2020. These were guns that were designed for wartime. They have no legitimate recreational purpose. And the purpose of the buyback program is to, first of all, acknowledge that law-abiding gun owners who bought them when they were legal will get fairly compensated for it. And today is a significant milestone, working with CSAAA to work with vendors to get that first 11,000 bought back.
Is this buyback costing, this initial 11,000 guns and components? How much is the cost of that?
Well, first, Budget 2023 does identify some resources for the buyback program that is focused on setting up the platform, and this announcement, this agreement today, will leverage that platform. But we're going to be very transparent about what the costing is around the buyback program. I'll have more to say about that as we lay out this initiative stage by stage. As I said earlier, we need to make sure that we get it right. And getting it right means bringing Canadians along, working with partners within the industry, working with law enforcement, working with gun owners themselves. And I've spent the last number of months crisscrossing the country to build that support, to build that consensus, because each of us do have a responsibility to keep our community safe.
We're in the process of changing Bill C-21, and you were in committee yesterday talking about having a list, no list. There are some firearms that were initially supposed to be banned, which will probably not be banned. So I was wondering, is there any process to make sure that those vendors do not buy those arms that could eventually become illegal, so that they get money from the government that they shouldn't be getting? Yeah,
it's a very good question. First, I want to be clear that the 11,000 that have been identified are assault-style firearms which are currently caught by the 2020 order in council, which the government passed 3 years ago. That's the first thing. The second thing is, with regards to Bill C-21, this is historic legislation. When it's passed, it will implement a national handgun freeze. Okay, this means that it will be permanent as policy in this country that you can't buy, sell, or transfer or bequeath a handgun. What do the Conservatives want to do? They want to repeal that. It will ensure that we, with the collaboration of opposition colleagues, and we've been working very hard with some, obviously not all in the Conservatives, to take the next important steps on how we can do this work around assault-style firearms. It will raise maximum sentences against gun traffickers by going from 10 to 14 years, and it will introduce red and flag.
Assault guns. I mean, there were 480 of them that were supposed to be banned in the first amendments that you brought in C-21. You're pulling that out. So those 480 models, what happened to those? Could vendors just buy them and then 6 months later you have to buy them back?
Well, as I said at the front end, the 11,000 are firearms which are currently caught by existing laws under the 2020 order in council. What I'm saying with regards to Bill C-21 is that I think that there is a responsibility and an opportunity not only to pass what is strong legislation, but to build on it by taking additional steps, as the Mass Casualty Commission final report called on us to do around assault-style firearms. And it's very clear from my appearance yesterday that the vast majority of parliamentarians, including the Bloc and the NDP, are prepared to roll up their sleeves and do that work. But with the Conservatives, what you get is a commitment to repeal the legislation, the landmark legislation that we have put into place that keeps guns out of the hands of criminals, that would put in place a national ban on assault-style firearms, that would put in place a national freeze on handguns. The Conservatives want to wipe that all away and work with the NRA special interests of this country. We think that is fundamentally wrong, and we're going to stay on track in keeping Canadians safe.
For the individual buyback program, do you need to have that in your mind, do you need to have that legislated definition of what counts as an assault-style weapon in place and decided before you move ahead with that program?
Also a good question, which is why the order in council, which we issued in 2020, the national ban on assault-style firearms, is in place. It is in force. And there is clarity and predictability on the basis of the two physical characteristics which catch those firearms, including the 20-millimeter bore diameter and the excess of 10,000 joules of force. That is how we're working with industry, with those standards. And then there's a conversation to be had about whether or not we can build on that, and I'm prepared to do that work with parliamentarians.
Resistance from provinces. You have Bill 8 in Alberta specifically. How do you plan on doing this if provinces are resisting this kind of change?
Well, first, I think it's fair to say that there is also support from some provinces like Quebec, like British Columbia. We're working very closely with provinces and territories. All levels of government have a responsibility to acknowledge that we've got to tackle gun crime together. And, you know, we owe it to people who have lost loved ones to do that work. And that is what I hear when I travel across this country. And that is true when I work with our provincial and territorial partners. So, look, today's announcement is a significant milestone. It is an important reflection of our government's commitment to make good on a promise around the launch of a program that will get assault-style firearms, which were designed for a battlefield, out of our communities once and for all. And it shows that in partnership with industry leaders like the CSAAA and others who will step up over the rollout of this program, that we can realize that vision. And that's the direction we need to move in, not trying to distill this debate into slogans, which is what the Conservatives do time and time again.
Alberta prevent the CSAAA from collecting these firearms?
We're going to work.
Be able to operate without the permission of Alberta?
Well, first thing I would say is that the Supreme Court of Canada has pronounced now for over 20 years that when it comes to firearms regulation, that falls within the exclusive jurisdiction of Parliament, which is here in Ottawa. But we're going to work with Alberta. We're going to work with all provinces and territories to do this work. We owe it to them.
On the individual side, it sounds like you're still at the beginnings of this work. So going back to my colleague's question, are you going to have to extend the amnesty order past October, or do you anticipate that all of this work will be done and you will be able to launch an individual firearms buyback program by October?
We're going to do everything that we can to launch this program. As I said today, this is a very significant stride in the implementation of the buyback program. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of partners that we need to coordinate with. And that's our focus right now, is just to keep at it around the clock so that we can get assault-style firearms, which were designed for a battlefield, out of our communities.
I'll take the definition of the RCMP have said that they don't feel it may be the best use of their resources to be helping run this buyback program. You mentioned working with law enforcement to run this. How is this going to look, considering how strained police resources are right now across the country?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that the RCMP and law enforcement are a vital partner in this, and would also point out that police associations, the chiefs of police, have come out in favor of the assault-style firearms ban. We have seen 10 police officers in the last number of months lose their lives. I have gone to every single one of those funerals, and I have grieved with the law enforcement community. I've grieved with families. I've grieved with people that live in my own riding who have lost loved ones because of gun violence. So there's no doubt that we're all motivated to work with law enforcement. But I think what we've shown today is that even before we get to there, we're working with industry leaders, we're working with firearms vendors who have within their existing inventories a significant number of firearms which are caught by the 2020 order in council. And the sooner that we can get those assault-style firearms bought back and out of our communities, the better, because they have no place there. And that is the vision of this government. The vision of this government is to put forward investments in law enforcement, to put forward investments to stop gun crime before it starts, and yes, to put forward smart and effective gun policy like the national ban on assault-style firearms, which is backed by the buyback program, which we are rolling out today in a significant way. And we will continue to do that, which is in very stark contrast to what we hear from the Conservatives, who just want to spin off more slogans instead of doing the hard work of coming up with solutions. I'm confident that notwithstanding that there are other colleagues across the opposition, in the opposition aisles, I beg your pardon, in the opposition benches, who will work with us to pass Bill C-21, who will work with us to keep communities safe when it comes to gun crime, and I'm sure we'll have more to say about it later. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.